HT smile. I have been playing it for 30 years, Daniel replied. I just get to play it honestly now. On Earth, General Paul Grant stood before a gathering of military commanders from across human space. The underground facility beneath the Rocky Mountains had become the center of human military planning, and today's meeting was about the future. We won the first round, Grant said, his voice carrying across the room. But do not mistake that for winning the war. The Council accepted our terms because we demonstrated strength. The moment they sense weakness, they will try to take back everything they gave us. Admiral Karen Foster raised her hand. What about the minor species? We've been receiving messages from a dozen worlds asking about our tactics. Some of them want to follow our example. Grant considered this carefully. The room was silent as everyone waited for his answer. We helped them, but carefully. The Council is already worried about human influence spreading. If they think we are recruiting other species for a rebellion, they might decide we are too dangerous to tolerate. So we do it quietly, Foster said. We do it the way we did everything else, Grant replied. Patiently, intelligently, always 3 steps ahead of anyone watching. In the outer sectors of the galaxy, human traders and explorers found themselves treated differently. Species that had once looked at them with contempt now showed respect, or at least caution. The story of the Crimson Protocols had spread across the galaxy, growing more dramatic with each retelling. Captain Jake Morrison, whose confrontation with the Morvasi had sparked the crisis, discovered he was something of a celebrity. Other traders would buy him drinks and ask about the moment when the Valiant appeared above Cora Station. It was not as dramatic as people think, Jake would say, though he enjoyed the attention. I was mostly worried they were going to blow up my ship. But he knew the truth. That moment had been the culmination of 30 years of planning. Every human who had smiled through an insult, paid an unfair fine, or accepted mistreatment had been part of the strategy. They had made the Council believe humans were harmless, and that belief had been their greatest weapon. Back on the Council station, Daniel attended his first High Command meeting as an equal member. The chamber was different at this level. Smaller, more intimate, where the real decisions were made. The agenda covered trade disputes, territorial claims, and military deployments. Nothing directly concerned humanity. Benial paid attention to everything. Zelkos floated at his usual position, his telepathic presence more guarded than before. The Yuvali had been embarrassed by their failure to read human minds during the crisis, and they were being careful now. Ambassador Hayes. Your vote is required on the Outer Rim security proposal, Zelko said. It was a test. The Morvasi wanted to establish new military checkpoints in sectors near human space. The official reason was pirate activity. The real reason was to monitor human movements. I vote no, Daniel said clearly. The proposed checkpoints are unnecessarily close to human territory. If the Morvasi are concerned about pirates, they can establish checkpoints deeper in their own space. Corthan's 6 arms tensed. The security of Council space is paramount, and perhaps the Morvasi military should focus on actual pirates instead of watching law-abiding species, Daniel replied, keeping his voice level. Several minor species voted with humanity. They had seen what happened when someone stood up to the Council, and it had given them courage. The proposal failed by a narrow margin. After the meeting, Veshrax approached Daniel in the corridor. The Torgash merchant's crystalline form pulsed with what might have been amusement. Wait, you are making enemies. Ambassador, Veshrax said. I have had enemies since the day humanity joined the Council, Daniel replied. The only difference is now they know I am aware of it. Fair point. For what it is worth, the Torgash respect what you accomplished. It was elegant. It was necessary. Veshrax's form pulsed again. Perhaps, but be careful. The Morvasi are proud, and the Yuvali are patient. They will look for ways to undermine you. Let them, Daniel said. We will be ready. On Earth, in a secure facility beneath the Himalayan mountains, human scientists continued their work. The railgun technology that had crippled the Dreadclaw was only the beginning. Research teams were developing new propulsion systems, advanced coordination networks, and weapons that would make the Council's arsenals look primitive within a decade. Dr. Nathan Cole. head of weapons research, briefed General Grant on the latest developments. Holographic displays showed ship designs that looked like something from science fiction. "The Council thinks they have seen our best technology," Nathan said. "They have not. The railguns were 30-year-old designs. What we are building now is exponentially more advanced." "Do not let that make you overconfident," Grant warned. "The Council has existed for thousands of years. They have seen empires rise and fall. They will adapt to us, just like we adapted to them. But we have something they do not, sir." "What is that?" "Motivation. They are trying to maintain a comfortable status quo. We are trying to survive. That gives us an edge." As months passed, a new balance emerged in the galaxy. Humanity was not the submissive junior member anymore, but neither were they the dominant force. They had earned respect through strength and maintained it through careful diplomacy. Other minor species began to follow humanity's example, though not through open rebellion. They stopped accepting unfair terms without question. They began developing technologies that the Council had not approved. They formed alliances with each other, creating power blocks that balanced against the elder races. The Galactic Council, which had maintained order through overwhelming force and political manipulation for millennia, found itself forced to actually negotiate. Treaties that had once been dictated were now debated. Regulations that had once been absolute were now challenged. Ambassador Hayes stood in his office one evening, looking out at the neutron star. Helen Parker joined him, carrying the daily reports from Earth. "The Council is calling an economic summit," she said. "They want to restructure trade agreements across the galaxy." "Because the old agreements assumed minor species would stay economically dependent," Daniel said. "Now that we are pushing back, the whole system needs revision. Do you think it will last?" Helen asked quietly. "This new balance?" Daniel was silent for a moment, thinking, "Nothing lasts forever. The Council will look for weaknesses. Some minor species will overreach and get slapped down. The Morvasi will try to provoke a conflict. The Yuvali will scheme. The Torgash will manipulate markets. But we are not the same species we were 30 years ago. We know how the game is played now. More importantly, the Council knows we will fight back if pushed too far." Helen smiled slightly. "So the polite mode stays off?" "Let us say it is selectively applied now," Daniel replied. "We will be diplomatic when it serves our interests. But the days of accepting abuse with a smile are over." Across the galaxy, on ships and stations and colony worlds, humans went about their business with new confidence. They still faced challenges. They were still one of the smaller members of the galactic community. But they had proven something that would echo through history. They had proven that being polite was not the same as being weak. They had proven that patience could be a weapon. They had proven that even the most powerful empire could be challenged by those clever enough, patient enough, and bold enough to try. The Galactic Council would never forget the day humanity's polite mode turned off. It was the day they learned that the quiet species from the small blue planet had been paying attention all along, preparing for the moment when politeness would no longer protect them, and across human space. In classrooms and military academies, a new generation was learning the lesson that their parents and grandparents taught the galaxy. Respect is not given freely. Sometimes it must be taken. 1 year after the Crimson Protocols changed everything, the galaxy had settled into an uneasy new rhythm. Ambassador Daniel Hayes walked through the Council Station's main plaza, watching species from 100 worlds go about their business. Some nodded to him respectfully. Others looked away. A few still glared with barely hidden contempt. He had learned to read those looks. The respectful ones were from species who appreciated that someone had finally stood up to the Council. The contemptuous ones were from the elder races and their closest allies, who still believed humanity had committed an unforgivable crime by refusing to know their place. But the most interesting looks came from the younger species, the ones who had joined the Council in the past century or two. They watched humans with a mixture of hope and fear, wondering if they could do what humanity had done, wondering if they should even try. Daniel's communication device buzzed. A message from Earth marked urgent. He found a quiet corner and opened it. "Ambassador, we have a situation," General Grant's voice said. The Corvassi Collective has seized a human mining operation in the Tau sector. 23 workers are being held. They're claiming the system belongs to them under an old treaty. Daniel felt a familiar anger rising. The Corvassi were a species that controlled 40 systems and had always treated humans with disdain. When did this happen? You would doom your species for this? The Yavali asked. No, Daniel said. We would save our species by showing you that we cannot be pushed anymore. You have two choices. Accept our terms, and we continue as productive members of the galactic community. Or refuse, and learn what happens when you corner a predator. The council called for a recess. Daniel and his team were escorted to a waiting room while the elder races debated in chambers that humans were not allowed to enter. 6 hours passed. Helen Parker brought updates from Earth, where celebrations had already started in some cities. Do you think they will accept? Helen asked. Daniel looked out the window at the distant stars. They will stall. They will try to find a way to make us back down without actually giving us what we want. That is when we show them the next part of the plan. There is more. Daniel smiled. Operation Flashpoint. We have been saving it for when the Council tries to call our bluff. On Earth, in the command center under the Rocky Mountains, General Grant watched the countdown timer. 3 hours until Operation Flashpoint would begin. Around him, technicians worked at consoles, monitoring systems across the galaxy. All teams report ready, Admiral Karen Foster said. We are waiting on your orders, sir. Grant looked at the holographic display showing Council military installations. Thousands of them spread across hundreds of worlds. Each one about to experience a very bad day. Execute Operation Flashpoint, Grant said. At exactly midnight, Galactic Standard Time, the Council's worst nightmare began. Every major military installation experienced simultaneous system failures. Communication networks went dark. Sensors displayed garbage data. Weapons targeting systems locked up. Ships found themselves unable to engage faster-than-light drives. On the Morvasi homeworld, Corthon watched his command center die. Screens went black. Holographic displays flickered and vanished. Emergency lights cast red shadows across the room. What is happening? He roared. A technician worked frantically at a manual console. Sir, we are experiencing massive system intrusions. Someone has inserted code into our core networks. It is spreading through our entire military infrastructure. How? The code signature is human, sir, but that should be impossible. Our systems are isolated and encrypted. On the merchant world of Telos Prime, Veshrox watched in horror as the Torgash trade network collapsed. Trillions of credits and transactions simply vanished. Supply ships reported navigation failures. Commerce stations went offline. 30,000 years of carefully built economic infrastructure was falling apart. The Quellan hive mind, normally coordinated across 1,000 worlds, found its telepathic links jammed by interference patterns. Individual nodes began to panic, cut off from the collective consciousness for the first time in their lives. Some went catatonic, others screamed. Even the Yavali, with their advanced telepathy, found themselves unable to coordinate. Zelkos reached out across space and felt only static, as if someone had wrapped the entire galaxy in mental fog. Across every screen, every display, every communication channel that still worked, a message played. This is a demonstration. For 30 years, you thought we were weak. While you were not looking, we mapped your systems, studied your networks, and planted code in your infrastructure. What you are experiencing now is a fraction of what we can do. Your ships are offline, your trade is stopped, your communications are severed. We did this without firing a single shot. The message continued. We do not want war, but we will not be bullied. Accept our terms, and everything returns to normal in 1 hour. Refuse, and we show you what else we have prepared. In the council chamber, emergency lighting cast shadows across the assembled representatives. They had no way to contact their homeworlds, no way to coordinate a military response. They were trapped in their own station, completely dependent on human goodwill for basic life support. Daniel Hayes walked into the darkened chamber. His footsteps echoed in the silence. How? Zelkos demanded, his telepathic voice weak without his full power. How did you infiltrate our systems? The same way you infiltrated ours, Daniel said. Every inspection you performed, every time your technicians connected to our computers to check compliance, you thought you were spying on us. You did not realize we were letting you in. Your people would access our networks, and while they were snooping, we were mapping yours. Every connection was a doorway. Every inspection was an opportunity. A Quellan node buzzed in distress, separated from its collective. You have severed our hive mind. Individual nodes are experiencing trauma. Then accept our terms, Daniel said simply. This ends when you agree. Corthon, even in defeat, tried to maintain dignity. Our technicians will purge your code eventually. Maybe, General Grant said, his hologram appearing in the chamber, but it will take months, maybe years. Every system, every ship, every station. You will have to rebuild from scratch. While you are doing that, pirates will attack your supply lines. Rival factions will sense weakness. Your entire empire might collapse. No, Daniel said. You accept that humanity will not be your victim anymore. We will remove all our code, restore your systems, and move forward as equals. Your choice. The council representatives looked at each other in the dim light. The Morvasi wanted to fight, but their weapons were offline. The Javali wanted to negotiate, but they could not coordinate with their homeworld. The Torgash just wanted their trade network back before the economic damage became permanent. Finally, Veshrak spoke. Its crystalline form pulsed weakly in the emergency lighting. What guarantee do we have that you will restore our systems if we agree? The same guarantee we had that you would treat us fairly when we joined the council, Daniel said. None. You will have to trust us. Just like we trusted you for 30 years. The silence stretched. Every representative understood the irony. They had spent 3 decades breaking trust with humanity, and now their survival depended on humans keeping their word. The vote took another hour. It was not unanimous. Morvasi voted against the terms until the very end. But enough council members saw the reality of their situation. They could fight and risk everything, or they could accept that the galaxy had changed. The agreement passed with 63% approval. Within minutes, human technicians began removing the malicious code from council systems. Communications came back online. Trade networks resumed operations. The Quellan hive mind reconnected. Though individual nodes would need counseling for the trauma of separation, Corthan's military command center lit up with status reports showing all systems operational, but nothing would ever be the same. Every species in the council now knew that the polite, submissive humans had been running a long game. I know they had been. Gathering intelligence, building weapons, and preparing for this exact moment while pretending to be harmless. On Earth, people danced in the streets. Humanity had stood up to an empire of thousands of worlds and won without firing more than a handful of warning shots. The news broadcast showed the council agreement, the return of Meridian 7, the refunds of 30 years of unfair fines, but in military command centers and intelligence agencies, the work was just beginning. General Grant stood before his staff, watching as council systems came back online. Do not celebrate too much, he said. We showed them our teeth. Now they know we are dangerous. They will never underestimate us again, which means they will start planning how to neutralize us. We need to stay 3 steps ahead. Admiral Foster nodded. What is our next move? We keep building. We keep improving. We make sure that every species in this galaxy understands that humanity earned its place at the table. 3 months after the Crimson Protocols, Ambassador Daniel Hayes sat in his new office. The view was different now. Instead of looking at the council chamber from the cheap seats, he had a panoramic window that showed the neutron star Velcro's prime in all its violent glory. The office was bigger, the furniture was better. Everything had changed, and yet nothing had changed. The Meridian 7 colony was being rebuilt. 2,000 families were returning to their homes. Though many of them were still angry about being displaced in the first place, human ships moved through council space without constant harassment. Though Morvasi patrol vessels still followed them from a distance, the unfair fines had been refunded, along with a formal apology from the Torgash Trade Ministry that everyone knew was not sincere. Commander Lisa Ward entered the office, carrying a datapad. She looked tired. Running security for the human delegation was a full-time job now that the Council was actively looking for ways to undermine them. We have detected increased Morvasi. Military exercises near human territory, Lisa said, placing the pad on Daniel's desk. Nothing overtly threatening, but they are clearly testing our response times. Daniel nodded. He had expected this. Council had accepted the terms because they had no choice, but that did not mean they were happy about it. What about the Javali? They have requested cultural exchange programs with Earth. They want to send telepaths to study human mental disciplines. Daniel almost laughed. Which means they want to learn how we block their mind reading. Deny the request, but offer to send human researchers to study their telepathy instead. Keep it balanced. You are getting good at this political game, sir, Lisa said with a slig. L directly above Chorus Station. Jake watched through his viewport as the human warship appeared, and his breath caught in his throat. She was beautiful. Sleek and angular, covered in weapons he had never seen on a human vessel before. And she was not alone. 6 more ships materialized around her, forming a wall between the station and the Dreadclaw. Commander Lisa Ward's voice came over all frequencies. Morvasi, Vessel, Dreadclaw. You have 30 seconds to release Captain Morrison and withdraw from the docking bay. The Morvasi commander laughed. It was an ugly sound. You threaten us? Your species will be destroyed for this insult. 20 seconds. The Dreadclaw was 3 times the size of the Valiant. Its weapons could destroy cities. The Morvasi commander clearly thought the humans were bluffing. He was wrong. At 0, the Valiant fired. The sound was different from Council weapons. No hum of charging plasma, no flash of energy beams, just a sharp crack that Jake felt in his bones. The projectile hit the Dreadclaw's engine and punched straight through the shields like they were paper. A second shot destroyed the weapons array. 2 more shots crossed in front of the ship's bridge, missing by meters. The entire fight took 8 seconds.
Oh.
This is your final warning, Lisa said, her voice cold. Leave now, or the next shot goes through your bridge. The Dreadclaw's engines flickered to life, damaged but functional. The massive ship turned slowly and limped away from the station, the commander screaming threats about Council retribution. Jake stood in his cargo bay, watching the human warships hold their position. On every screen in Chorus Station, a message began to play. It was in every language the Council used. For 30 years, humanity has followed your rules. We have paid your fines, accepted your insults, and apologized for existing. That ends today. We will not be bullied anymore. We claim our place in this galaxy as equals, not as servants. This is the only warning you will receive. The message was signed by General Paul Grant, Earth Defense Command. Jake sat down heavily on a cargo container. Around him, other human crews were emerging from their ships, staring at the warships above. Some were cheering, some were crying. All of them understood that everything had just changed. On the Council station, Ambassador Daniel Hayes felt his communication device vibrate. Reports were flooding in from across the galaxy. Human ships were moving. Human diplomats were making demands instead of requests. Technologies that Council regulations had forbidden were being revealed. And everywhere, the same message was playing. His assistant, Helen Parker, rushed into the room. Sir, the Council is calling an emergency session. They are saying this is an act of war. Daniel smiled. It was the first real smile he had worn in years. Tell them we will attend. But we are bringing our fleet. Helen's eyes went wide. Sir, if we bring warships to the Council chamber, there is no going back. There was no going back the moment we fired on the Dreadclaw, Daniel said. He stood and straightened his uniform. For 30 years, he had worn the clothes of a diplomat who apologized for everything. Now, he looked like what he really was. A representative of a species that was done playing weak. Across the galaxy, Council's communication networks lit up with panic. The Morvasi were demanding immediate military action. The Torgash were calculating the economic impact of a war with humanity. The Yavali were trying to read human minds from across space, searching for deception or weakness. The Quellan hive mind was humming with confusion. trying to understand how they had missed the signs of human military buildup in the council chamber. High Arbiter Zelkos of the Yavali gathered the representatives for an emergency meeting. His telepathic voice radiated across the room, angry and demanding. The humans have committed an act of war. They attacked a council enforcer. They must be punished immediately. War Prime Corthan of the Morvasi slammed his fists on the console. My ship was crippled by primitives. We must strike back before they think they can challenge us openly. The Torgash representative Veshrax pulsed with amber light. More concerning than the attack is their hidden fleet. Our sensors detected at least 40 warships. How did we not know about this? Because we were not looking, said the Quellan representative. We thought humans were weak. We thought they would always submit. We were wrong. Zelkos floated higher, trying to project authority. Wrong or not, we cannot allow this challenge to stand. If humans can defy us, other species will try. The Council's authority must be absolute, and perhaps the Council should have treated its members fairly, said a new voice. Everyone turned. Ambassador Daniel Hayes walked into the chamber, flanked by Commander Lisa Ward and General Paul Grant. Behind them, holographic images of human military commanders appeared, each one standing at attention. The chamber fell silent. Daniel did not take his usual seat in the back. Instead, he walked to the main podium, the place reserved for senior council members. A Quellan representative chittered in protest, but Daniel ignored it. For 30 years, Daniel said, his voice carrying across the chamber, we played your game. We smiled when you insulted us. We apologized when we did nothing wrong. We paid fines that were nothing but theft. We gave up colonies we built with our own hands. And you thought that meant we were weak. You are weak, Corthan growled. You have 17 worlds. We have thousands. General Grant stepped forward. Numbers do not mean what you think they mean. You want to know how many ships we have? Try us. You want to know what our weapons can do? Ask the Dreadclaw. Veshrax's crystalline form pulsed rapidly. You developed kinetic weapons. That technology is banned under the Velcro's Accords. It's banned for council members, Lisa said. We never signed that treaty. You were too busy treating us like children to bother including us in arms agreements. A ripple of unease spread through the chamber. The Velcro's Accords had been in place for 2,000 years. The council had assumed all species would follow the rules. Even species that had never agreed to them, Zelkos tried to push into Daniel's mind. Reading his thoughts the way the Javali always did during negotiations, but this time Daniel pushed back. The Javali recoiled, his energy form flickering with surprise. How did you block me? Zelkos demanded. Did you think we spent 30 years doing nothing? Daniel asked. Every inspection you performed gave us data. We studied you. All of you. We know how your shields work. We know your communication frequencies. We know how your hive minds coordinate. And we know how to stop your telepathy. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted over each other. The Quellan collective hummed with agitation. The crystalline Xanther, who rarely spoke, vibrated with what could only be alarm. Daniel let them panic for a moment. Then he raised his hand, and the room gradually fell silent. Here are our terms, he said. Ambassador Daniel Hayes stood at the council podium. Looking at the representatives who had spent 30 years treating humanity like children, now they stared back at him with something they had never shown before. Uncertainty. Our terms are simple, Daniel said. Every human colony that was seized gets returned. Every unfair fine we paid gets refunded. The Military Limitation Act no longer applies to Earth. We pay fair taxes based on our actual territory, not the inflated rates you have been charging. And humanity gets a permanent seat on the Council High Command with full voting rights. The chamber exploded with outrage. War Prime Corthan of the Morvasi stood to his full height, towering over everyone. This is insanity. You are a minor species. You have earned nothing. We earned it by being smart enough to know when we were being cheated, Daniel replied calmly, and strong enough to do something about it. High Arbiter Zelkos floated closer, his telepathic presence probing for weakness. You would risk your entire species for pride? Daniel laughed. It was a harsh sound that echoed through the chamber. Pride. This is not about pride. This is survival. We played nice for 30 years, and you kept pushing. You took our colonies. You imprisoned our people. You treated us like pets. We knew that if we kept accepting it, eventually you would decide humanity was not worth keeping around. General Paul Grant stepped forward, pulling up a holographic map of the galaxy. Red dots marked 73 locations. These are the choke points in the Torgash supply network. Every major trade route goes through at least one of them. We have ships positioned at all 73. You want to fight? Your fleets will not get fuel. Your colonies will not get food. Your economy will collapse in a week. The Torgash representative Veshrox flickered between colors. You would not dare. Try us, Commander Lisa Ward said. The council members looked at each other. For the first time in thousands of years, they were facing a species that was not afraid of them. A species that had planned, prepared, and waited for the right moment to push back. Corthon's six fists clenched. Even if you control the trade routes, you cannot win a military conflict. We have millions of ships. Every single one runs on a supply chain we can cut, Grant said. We have run the numbers. In a direct war, we estimate we can hold out for 3 years before needing to retreat to Earth. In that time, your entire economy collapses. Your subject species see that you can be resisted. Your empire falls apart from within. Zelkos tried again to read Daniel's mind, searching for doubt or deception. He found none. The humans meant every word. The council chamber floated in space, orbiting a dying star that pulsed with ancient light. Inside, Ambassador Daniel Hayes sat in the smallest chair, furthest from the center where decisions were made. He had been sitting in that chair for 3 years now, and before him, other human ambassadors had sat there for 27 more. 30 years of smiling, nodding, and saying sorry for things that were not their fault. Daniel watched as the Morvasi representative, a giant creature with 6 arms, spoke about human violations. Apparently, a human mining ship had crossed into an area the Morvasi claimed as their own. Never mind that the humans had been there first. Never mind that the Morvasi had filed their claim only after finding out the asteroid belt was rich in rare metals. The humans must pay a fine, the Morvasi said, his voice like rocks grinding together. 50,000 credits, and they must leave the system immediately. Daniel stood up slowly. His back hurt from sitting in the uncomfortable chair. We apologize for any misunderstanding. We were not aware of your claim. We will pay the fine and relocate our operations. The other council members barely looked at him. The Yavali floating beings of pure energy seemed bored. The Torgash silicon-based creatures who controlled most trade were already discussing the next topic. The Quellan hive mind hummed quietly, thousands of voices speaking as one. This was normal. This was how things had been for 30 years. After the meeting ended, Daniel walked back to the human quarters. The station was massive, with sections for each of the major species. The human section was small, tucked away in a corner, like an afterthought. He found Commander Lisa Ward waiting for him in the common area. Lisa was young for a commander. Only 35, but she had fire in her eyes that Daniel recognized. It was the same fire he had felt when he first joined the diplomatic corps, before 30 years of this place had worn it down.
How much longer?
Lisa asked. She did not waste time with greetings. Daniel poured himself a drink. Real coffee, brought from Earth at great expense. As long as it takes. It took Meridian 7, Lisa said. Her voice was tight with anger. 2,000 colonists. Families. Children. They just took it. And you apologized? I know what I did, Daniel said quietly. Do you? Lisa stood up, pacing the small room. Do you know what people back home are saying? They think we are cowards. They think we are letting the council walk all over us. Daniel looked at her for a long moment. Then he walked to the door and locked it. He activated a small device that would block any listening equipment. Only then did he speak. Lisa, do you know what Protocol Crimson is? She froze. That is classified above my level? Not anymore. Daniel pulled up a holographic display. For 30 years, we have been playing weak. We smile, we apologize, we pay their fines. And while we do that, we build. We prepare. We wait. The hologram showed ships. Dozens of them. Warships that looked nothing like the civilian vessels the Council knew about. These ships do not officially exist, Daniel said. They were built in pieces in civilian shipyards that the Council thinks are making cargo haulers. We have been stockpiling weapons, training soldiers, and developing technology that the Council has never seen. Lisa stared at the display. How many? 40 capital ships, 100 support vessels, and weapons that will make the Council's plasma cannons look like toys. But why wait? Why let them push us around if we have this? Daniel smiled, but it was a sad smile. Because we needed them to believe we were harmless. Every inspection they did, every time they bullied us, they became more confident, more careless. They stopped seeing us as a threat. And while they were not looking, we mapped their systems, studied their weaknesses, prepared for the day when we would stop being polite. When? Lisa asked. Soon we are waiting for the right moment. When they push too far? When they think they can do anything to us without consequences? That is when we show them who we really are. On Earth, in a command center buried deep under the Rocky Mountains, General Paul Grant watched the same holographic display. Around him, military leaders from across human space gathered for a meeting that had been planned for years. The Council thinks we are weak, Grant said. They think 30 years of diplomatic submission means we will never fight back. They are wrong. He pulled up reports from across human space. Incidents of Council ships harassing human vessels, unfair fines, illegal seizures, human citizens imprisoned on false charges. It had been building for years, each incident worse than the last. We have 48 hours before the Morvasi make their next move, Grant continued. Our intelligence suggests they are planning to seize 3 more human colonies. They think we will just accept it like we accepted Meridian 7. Admiral Karen Foster leaned forward. And we are going to let them try. No, Grant said. We are going to stop them. And we are going to do it in a way that makes every species in the galaxy understand that humanity is done being pushed around. That could mean war, someone said. Grant agreed. But staying quiet could mean extinction. The Council is testing us. Every time we let them take something, they take more. Eventually, they will decide we are not worth keeping around. We need to show them that we have teeth before they try to remove us completely. Back on the Council station, Daniel Hayes sat alone in his quarters. He thought about Earth, about the green hills and blue oceans he had not seen in 3 years. He thought about the colonists on Meridian 7, forced from their homes. He thought about all the humans who had swallowed their pride for 30 years. Waiting for this moment, his communication device blinked. A message from Earth, encrypted and coded. 2 words. Status green. Everything was in place. The ships were ready. The soldiers were trained. The technology was tested. All they needed now was the spark, the incident that would justify what came next. Daniel did not have to wait long. The next morning, a message came through on the emergency channel. A human cargo ship, the New Horizon, had been stopped by a Morvasi warship at Cora Station. The captain, Jake Morrison, was being threatened with impound and imprisonment over a regulation that did not even apply to his cargo. Daniel read the report and felt something shift inside him. 30 years of playing the diplomat, of being the voice of peace and submission. It was time for that to end. He opened a secure channel to Earth. General Grant, this is Ambassador Hayes. Authorized Protocol Crimson. There was a pause. Then Grant's voice came through, steady and sure. Confirmed. Protocol Crimson is authorized. All units are go. Daniel stood up and looked out at the dying star. Somewhere out there, human warships were beginning to move. Soldiers were taking their positions. And the galaxy was about to learn that humanity had been paying attention all along. The polite phase was over. Now came the reckoning. Captain Jake Morrison had been flying cargo ships for 15 years. He knew the routes, knew the regulations, and knew how to deal with council inspectors who were looking for any excuse to cause trouble. But this time felt different. The Morvasi warship Dreadclaw had appeared out of nowhere, blocking his approach to Chorus Station like a wall of metal and weapons. "Human vessel, stop your engines," the Morvasi commander ordered. "You are being inspected for violations." Jake sighed and brought the New Horizon to a halt. "This is Captain Morrison." "What violation?" "We will determine that during inspection," was how it always went. They did not need a real reason. They just needed to show that they could push humans around whenever they wanted. Jake had been through this before. He would let them search his ship, pay whatever fine they invented, get on with his job. The Morvasi boarding party tore through his cargo hold like they were looking for hidden weapons. They broke open containers, scattered equipment across the floor, and scanned everything 3 times. Jake watched from the doorway, his jaw tight, saying nothing. After 4 hours, they found exactly what Jake already knew they would find. Nothing. The Morvasi commander stood in the middle of the mess. His 6 arms crossed over his massive chest. "There is a fine for wasting our time. 50,000 credits. Jake felt his blood pressure rising. "Wasting your time? You stopped me. I was following every regulation. You signaled criminal intent. How exactly did I do that?" The Morvasi leaned down until his helmet almost touched Jake's face. "I do not explain council decisions to lesser species. Pay the fine, or we take your ship." Jake had paid fines like this before. He had swallowed his anger, transferred the credits, and filed reports that went nowhere. But something in him wanted to fight back this time. Maybe it was the way the Morvasi looked at him like he was garbage. Maybe it was thinking about all the other humans who had been treated this way. Before he could respond, a voice crackled over every speaker in the station. "All human vessels. This is Commander Lisa Ward of the Earth Defense ship Valiant. Protocol Crimson is now active." Jake's heart nearly stopped. Every human captain knew what Protocol Crimson meant. It was the code they had been told about in secret briefings. The authorization that meant everything was about to change. For 30 years, humans had been waiting for those words. The Morvasi commander looked confused. "What is this protocol?" Jake smiled for the first time in hours. "It means you should probably leave my ship." Right now, 3 minutes later, the Valiant dropped out of faster-than-light trave. 3 hours ago. "They are demanding we pay compensation for trespassing and leave the sector entirely." "What does our intelligence say?" "The treaty they are citing was made with a species that went extinct 400 years ago. It has no legal standing. They are testing us, seeing if we will fight back, or if the Crimson Protocols were a one-time thing."
Ow.
This was what he had been afraid of. The Council had accepted humanity's terms, but individual species were still looking for ways to push boundaries. "Send the Valiant and 3 support ships. Tell Commander Ward to repeat what we did at Chorus Station. Give them 30 seconds to release our people, then disable their ships if they refuse." "Understood." "And Daniel?" "Yes. The Council is going to object loudly. They will say we are being aggressive." "Let them object," Daniel said. "We made it clear that we will not be pushed around anymore. That applies to everyone, not just the major Council powers." The confrontation at Tau Sector followed the same pattern as Chorus Station. The Corvasi ships, confident in their superior numbers, refused to back down. Commander Lisa Ward gave them 30 seconds. At 0, human railguns spoke, and 3 Corvasi vessels were disabled before they could fire a shot. The mining workers were freed within the hour. The Council emergency session that followed was predictable. Zelkos of the Yavali floated at the podium, his telepathic voice filled with carefully controlled anger. "The humans have attacked another Council member species. This pattern of aggression must be addressed." Daniel stood at the human delegation platform, which was now positioned among the senior members rather than in the back corner. "The Corvasi seized our people using a fraudulent legal claim. We responded with measured force to free them. No one was killed. 3 ships were disabled and can be repaired. Compare that to what the Corvasi would have done if the situation were reversed." Horthon, the Morvasi war prime, slammed his fists. "You cannot simply shoot at every species that disagrees with you. We do not, Daniel replied calmly. We shoot at species that kidnap our people. There is a difference. Corvassi representative, a serpentine creature named Sithrak, hissed angrily. You are warmongers. Savages pretending to be civilized. Daniel turned to face him directly. For 30 years, humanity accepted insults like that. We smiled and apologized and let species like yours treat us however you wanted. That time is over. You took our people. We took them back. If that makes us savages, then I suggest you remember that before you try it again. The vote on sanctions against humanity failed. Too many minor species voted against it, recognizing that if the Council punished humans for defending themselves, it would set a dangerous precedent. But the elder races were furious, and Daniel knew the situation was becoming more volatile. On Earth, the Command Center General Grant watched the vote results with mixed feelings. We are making progress, but we are also making enemies. Admiral Karen Foster nodded. The minor species are starting to follow our lead. The Decian Republic just denied a Morvasi inspection request. The Volan Confederacy is demanding fair representation on trade committees. The elder races are losing control and they blame us, because it is our fault, Grant said. We showed everyone that the Council could be resisted. Now the whole system is destabilizing. Is that a bad thing, sir? Grant was quiet for a moment. It depends on what comes next. If we get a more fair and balanced council, then no. But if we get chaos and war, then yes. We need to be careful about what we have started. Across the galaxy, the changes continued. Human ships now traveled with military escorts, not because they expected trouble, but because they wanted everyone to see that humanity could defend itself. Human diplomats spoke with authority rather than deference. Human colonies expanded into new systems without asking permission first, but with power came responsibility, and that weighed heavily on the people making decisions. Ambassador Hayes sat in a meeting with representatives from 6 minor species who wanted to form an alliance. They called themselves the Free Systems Coalition, and they wanted humanity to lead it. We cannot lead, Daniel said, disappointing them. If we become the face of this movement, the Council will paint it as human imperialism. They will say, we are trying to build our own empire. Then what do we do? Asked the representative from the Athesian Republic. Alone, we are weak. Together with humanity's support, we could demand real change. Form your coalition, Daniel said. Support each other. Trade with each other. Defend each other. But do it as equals, not as followers of humanity. We will trade with you, share technology when appropriate, and stand with you if you are attacked unjustly. But we will not lead you. That is how empires start, and we are not trying to build an empire.
Ow.
The meeting ended with mixed feelings. Some of the representatives understood Daniel's reasoning. Others felt abandoned, wanting humanity to take a more active role in challenging the Council. Helen Parker, who had been observing the meeting, spoke as the others left. You know, they are going to do it anyway. Form the coalition and look to us for guidance. Probably, Daniel agreed. But there is a difference between being an example and being a leader. One inspires others to find their own strength. The other creates dependence. It's very philosophical for a man who started a revolution. Daniel smiled tiredly. I did not start anything. I just stopped accepting things the way they were. What happens next is up to everyone else. On the Morvasi homeworld, Corthon met with military advisors in a secure chamber. Holographic displays showed human ship movements, colony expansions, and weapon capabilities. They are becoming too powerful, one advisor said. If we do not act now, in 10 years, they will be untouchable. Corthon's 6 fists clenched. I am aware. But a direct military confrontation is too risky. Their weapons are effective, and their tactics are unpredictable. We need a different approach. What do you suggest, Warprime? We make them choose between their principles and their interests. Force them into situations where defending others will cost them more than they are willing to pay. Show the galaxy that human strength has limits. It was a sound strategy, and Corthon was not the only one thinking along these lines. Across the Council, the elder races were adapting to the new reality. They could not simply crush humanity anymore, so they would have to be more subtle. Back on the council station, Daniel received a message from his daughter on Earth. She was 12 years old and had just learned about the Crimson Protocols in school. Her message was excited, full of pride for what her father had accomplished. He read it 3 times. Feeling the weight of responsibility grow heavier, his daughter would grow up in a galaxy where humans were respected but also feared, where they had proven they could fight but now had to prove they could lead, where the easy part was over and the hard part was just beginning. Commander Lisa Ward found him in his office late that night, staring out at the stars. "You should get some rest, sir. Tomorrow's council session is going to be long." "I keep thinking about the next 30 years, Daniel said. "We spent 3 decades preparing for the moment when we would stop being polite. But what comes after that? How do we maintain what we have built without becoming the thing we fought against?" Lisa was quiet for a moment. "We stay honest. We stay fair. We remember what it felt like to be pushed around, and we make sure we never do that to others." Sounds simple when you say it that way, but it is simple. Following through is the hard part. Daniel nodded. She was right, of course. The hard part was always following through. Across the galaxy, in 100 different systems, humans were learning to live with the consequences of what they had done. Some colonies thrived, freed from unfair restrictions. Others struggled as the council found new ways to apply pressure. Some humans became heroes, standing up for the oppressed. Others became just as bad as the oppressors they had fought against. But through it all, one truth remained constant. The galaxy had learned a lesson on the day humanity's polite mode turned off. They had learned that kindness should not be mistaken for weakness, that patience could be a weapon, that a species willing to play the long game could change the rules of the entire galaxy. And in classrooms across human space, young children learned the same lesson. They learned about the 30 years of preparation, about the moment at Cora Station when everything changed, about Operation Flashpoint and the day the Council's systems went dark, but most importantly, they learned why it had happened. They learned that respect must be earned, that strength must be tempered with wisdom, that the greatest victories are won before the first shot is fired. The Galactic Council would never be the same. The galaxy would never be the same. And humanity, the species that had been dismissed as weak and insignificant, had proven that sometimes the most dangerous opponent is the one who has been quietly watching, learning, and preparing for the moment when politeness is no longer enough. Daniel Hayes stood at his window, looking out at the dying star that had witnessed 1,000 civilizations rise and fall. Somewhere out there, other species were watching humanity, wondering if they should follow the same path, wondering if they could. The answer, Daniel knew, was yes, they could. But whether they should and what they would do with that power if they gained it was a question only they could answer.